the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Let us pray. Our Father in the heaven.
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Australian and Egyptian national anthems.
Please be seated. A very good evening to everyone, to ladies and gentlemen, this fine and auspicious evening in the most beautiful surrounds that we are in here tonight. I would like to commence this evening by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land and custodians of this land on which we meet today, and that is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, both past and present.
A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome you in the name of our host, our beloved, His Grace, Bishop Suriel, for an evening in honour of His Holiness, Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St. Mark. Your Holiness, we're blessed and honoured to be your MCs this evening. My name is Miriam, and this is my husband, Anthony.
Although this is the 7th visit by a Pope of the Coptic Orthodox Church to Australia, this is the first and most historic visit by His Holiness Pope Tawadros II. We gather today to welcome His Holiness to our beautiful city on the eve of the Coptic New Year. We also have a special celebration with the promotion to hegemon of Father Daniel, Father Antonius, and Father Mark.
Tonight, we celebrate a man of outstanding spiritual leadership, a shepherd of hope amid tribulation, and a father whose bountiful sacrifice and immeasurable love are inspiring the revival of our faith to the four corners of the earth. As we've all witnessed, His Holiness Pope Tawadros II inaugurated the first Coptic Orthodox Church in Japan just last week.
Your Holiness, the dominant theme to emerge since the beginning of your blessed papacy in 2012 is hope. And today, your children here in the Diocese of Melbourne celebrate this with you in showcasing what the church you lead has achieved through 50 years in Australia, and in particular, the last 18 years since the enthronement of our beloved shepherd, His Grace Bishop Suriel. Our diocese has flourished through your prayers and his tireless work.
On this auspicious occasion, we're honoured to be joined by government and religious dignitaries, both local and international. We're delighted to have with us today, and please, ladies and gentlemen, hold your applause till the very end, or this could take a really long time. Her Excellency, the Honourable Linda Dessau, Governor of Victoria, and Mr. Anthony Howard QC. The Prime Minister of Australia is represented tonight by the Honourable Kevin Andrews, Federal Member for Menzies. We're delighted to be joined by Her Excellency Mrs. Nabila Makram, Minister for Immigration and Expatriate Affairs in the Egyptian Government, along with her colleagues from the Egyptian Parliament, Mr. Mohammed El Suidi, Member of the Egyptian House of Representatives, Leader of the Majority Coalition in the Egyptian Parliament, and President of the Federation of Egyptian Industries, Mrs. Anissa Hassouna and Dr. Marianne Azer, members of the House of Representatives in Egypt. And a most warm welcome to His Excellency Mr. Mohammed Khairat, Ambassador of the Arab Republic of Egypt to Australia.
We are privileged to have with us tonight the Honourable Bill Shorten, the Leader of the Federal Opposition, and Mrs. Shorten. We would also like to welcome the Honourable Peter Khalil, Federal Member for Willis, and one of our own. We are delighted to have with us the Honourable Emilios Kirou, Justice of the Supreme Court of Victoria. His Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Fakhri, Consul General of Egypt to Melbourne, and Her Excellency, Ms. Reem Zaharen, Consul to Melbourne. We are also blessed to have with us many heads of churches and prominent theologians. The Most Reverend Archbishop Dr. Philip Fryer, Anglican Primate of Australia, His Eminent Bishop Hagazun Najarian, Bishop Primate of the Armenian Apostolic Church in Australia and New Zealand, His Eminence Bishop Malatios Malki, the Patriarchal Vicariate of the Syrian Orthodox Church in Australia and New Zealand, His Grace Bishop Yakavos Milutopis, Bishop of the Greek Orthodox Church.
We're also delighted to have with us the Papal delegation. His Grace Bishop Daniel, Bishop of Maadi, His Grace Bishop Hermina, General Bishop, Reverend Father Angelos Ishak, Papal Secretary, Reverend Father Ammonios Adel, Papal Secretary, Deacon Wagih Sobhi, Papal Deacon, Miss Irini Wagdi, Media Officer, and Their Graces Bishop Daniel, Head of the Coptic Orthodox Diocese of Sydney, and Bishop Danielle, Abbot of St. Shenouda Coptic Orthodox Monastery in New South Wales. Also with us, Bishop Peter Danaher, President of the Victorian Council of Churches, and Sister Elizabeth Delaney, the Secretary. And we welcome the many members of the Victorian Council of Churches with us this evening. We have with us Dr. Graham Blackburn, Chancellor of the University of Divinity, and Professor Peter Sherlock, the Vice-Chancellor. We welcome Dr. Michael Hjelm, Dean of St. Ignatius Theological College in Sweden, and the Very Reverend Joseph Gobrin, Rector of St. Ignatius Orthodox Seminary. We also have our friends from Hobie Land, all the way from Singapore, Mr. Chairman Chua Tian Po, Mr. Chong Hock Chang, Mr. Ong Chong Hua, Mr. Nicholas Chu, and Mr. Phil Burns from Sinclair Brook, as well as the Victorian and Australian heads of churches and their representatives, the heads of colleges and council members from the university, academic staff and students of St. Athanasius Theological College, and special guests of the Coptic Church.
To them and to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, our warmest welcomes, and please extend your welcome and applause. We have a very full program planned for tonight, and to help us with the first segment of our program, it is our pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Mary Yasser and Christina Elias.
Good evening, Your Holiness and distinguished guests. My name is Christina Elias.
And I'm Mary Yassa. We represent Coptic Australians by birth and Coptic Australians by choice. I was born and educated in Egypt, and Christina was born in Australia, representing the third generation of Australian Copts.
Egypt has a unique place in the history of Christianity and the world. Egypt was honoured by the visit of the Holy Family shortly after the birth of Christ, as depicted in the beautiful icons we see around us tonight. Egypt was also mentioned twice in the prophecy of Isaiah, as he said through the Holy Spirit, "Let there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and blessed be Egypt, my people."
The following hymn was written by my colleague in Melbourne, Dr. Lillian Resk. It's aptly called "Blessed Be Egypt, My People." This choice tonight was inspired by the visit of Your Holiness all the way from our blessed Egypt, a land that, despite our distance from it, is close to our hearts, as are its people.
We welcome the Diocese Choir and Ensemble to present to us "Blessed Be Egypt, My People," or Mubarak Shabi Masr.
you so much for that full performance. Your entree will now be served while our diocese choir and ensemble gather to greet His Holiness. We would like to ask you not to approach the papal table during the evening, please, for security reasons. And please enjoy our first musical interlude by Magid Ibrahim, Mina Shamali and Tamer Mikhail. Thank you.
Good job. Done a good job. You have a lot of practice by these guys. See that?
grab one of those.
عايز يعمل نص لوحده حاجه تانية، عايز تعملها تانية عشان نفس دقيقة ومحدش يسمعها. ماشي. يلا. بنبتدي.
You start. By the way, never leave me alone. Like, even if you want me dominant, but I still need you, like, rhythm, everything. Yeah. It's okay, no. 6. It doesn't need to be close. Sit down.
here. Move this further away. Move this all together. Is that all right? Yeah.
Your stuff. You gotta get there in case. Yeah, you will be. Yes, but
The other one that we didn't practice. One that. We can share. Yeah, sure.
It's apparently it's on.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I please ask you all to return to your seats? We're about to commence the second part of this evening's formalities. I would like to start off by asking you all please to welcome the Honourable Bill Shorten, Federal Member and Opposition Leader. Ladies and gentlemen, the Coptic language is an ancient language of Christian worship in our church. The word Copt is derived from the Greek word Egyptus, which means Egypt. Our Coptic language ties us with our rich history and tradition. As you have already heard with the St. Athanasius Choir, our Coptic hymnology is a very integral part of our lives here in Australia, under the preservation of His Grace Bishop Suriel. Introducing a special piece which features our Coptic language is Jackie Mina and Wessam Malik.
Good evening, Your Holiness and distinguished guests. I'm Jacqueline Mina.
And I am Wessam Malik. And together we represent the middle-aged generation of Coptic Australians.
I'm not middle-aged.
Jackie?
The next hymn is embedded in the heart of all Copts. It is a hymn and a prayer derived from the Coptic liturgies of St. Cyril and St. Gregory.
The hymn in Coptic is called Genainan, which is translated Lord have mercy. It is a source of great comfort and inspiration during times of struggle and tribulation.
We pray, Lord have mercy on Egypt, Australia and the whole world. We ask that you enjoy listening to the hymn as the choir performs the verses on their own. You're welcome to lift your hearts in prayer when prompted on the screen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Diocese Choir Ensemble.
and join in.
Thank you so much for that beautiful performance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to invite a close friend of the Coptic Church, the Honourable Kevin Andrews, Federal Member for the seat of Menzies, which includes a suburb of Donvale, where the headquarters of the Diocese of Melbourne is located. Tonight, he's representing the Prime Minister of Australia. Welcome, Mr. Andrews.
Your Holiness, Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, Your Excellency, the Honourable Linda Dessau, Governor of Victoria, Your Grace, Bishop Suriel, Your Graces, many distinguished guests, including parliamentary colleagues from Australia and Egypt, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to attend this gala banquet in honour of Your Holiness and to represent the Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull, who sends his cordial greetings. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we participated in the opening of the splendid new Eporo Tower, the facilities for the Coptic Church here in Melbourne. And tonight, we celebrate the first visit of His Holiness to Australia. It is therefore an appropriate occasion to mark Your Holiness's leadership of some 15 million Copts worldwide, some 12 million of whom live in Egypt, and of course to celebrate with this wonderful community here in Melbourne, the second largest Coptic community outside Egypt. Your Holiness has demonstrated a clear and inspiring leadership of your community, reminding us all that humans are made in the image and likeness of God and therefore possess an inherent dignity and liberty that warrants acknowledgement and respect. Too often, sadly, in recent decades and years, Copts in their ancient land of Egypt have faced discrimination, intolerance and intimidation. Sadly, their human rights have been the subject of assault and on occasions their lives threatened. Too often we've witnessed violence and the killing of innocent Copts for merely practicing their faith. Throughout these tragedies, Your Holiness has demonstrated an important leadership, insisting on respect for life and toleration for all. But sadly, a church founded on the martyrdom of St. Mark continues to witness martyrs today. When human rights of any people are abused, the liberties of all of us are endangered. We are part of one body of humanity. Lack of respect for all of humanity unchecked threatens us all. That's why Australian governments of both persuasions have reached out to persecuted Copts, offering, where possible, refuge in this land. As we celebrate the visit of Your Holiness to Australia, let us also pray for the victims of these terrible events. Let our voices be heard around the world against the perpetrators, and let us affirm our resolve to ensure that toleration and peace exists throughout the world, and particularly in the land of the Copts, Egypt. Your Holiness, welcome again to Australia. May God bless you in your important leadership of your flock and for your work for humanity. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andrews. It is our immense pleasure to invite Her Excellency Ms. Nabila Makram, Minister of Immigration and Expatriate Affairs in Egypt and a daughter of the Coptic Orthodox Church. Please welcome Her Excellency.
Good evening. Indeed, Egypt is blessed with its people, and its people is blessed with Egypt. Please salute all Egyptian expats here at the banquet. Please, and all the Egyptian community in Australia. I am honored to come today and witness the opening of Eb Oro Tower. I didn't come alone as a Minister of Immigration and Egyptian expats. We have also a member of the Egyptian Parliament, Mr. Mohammed al-Suwidi, who is the leader of the majority, Mrs. Anisa Hassouna, and Dr. Marianne Aizer. This to prove that the Egyptian government and the Egyptian Parliament, they appreciate a lot the role of the Church to engage all Egyptians for a national role to Egypt. Speaking of the national role, this is my second time or my third time to Australia. And last time I came, I was promoting Egyptian bonds in 3 national banks. And when I was talking to Egyptians, encouraging them to buy these bonds, I mean, people were a bit hesitated about buying these bonds. So I went to Bishop Soriel and I told him, Sayyidina, I mean, we need your backing in this. And Bishop Soriel had this national role in talking to people and encouraging them to buy the national bonds. And we got a very good number of bonds when I returned back to Egypt. This to prove that Egypt is in all churches, in the heart of the bishops, in the heart of the clerks, and in the heart also of the Egyptian people. Maybe a couple of months ago, I had the pleasure to escort the High Council of the Eastern Churches of Australia. I worked with His Excellency Ambassador Muhammad Khairat, our ambassador in Canberra, and we had organized for them a wonderful program until they met with our President, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. And it was such a rich meeting, and he was frank with them and honest with them to tell them that the country is facing, not the country only Egypt, but all the countries, all the world is facing terrorists. It's not only in Egypt, it's everywhere. And this is why we as Egyptians, we should stand for the country, we should encourage the country, and we should also expose the good image of the country. God bless Egypt and God bless its people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister Makram. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to invite the Honourable Peter Khalil, Member of the Seat of Wills and the first Coptic Member of Parliament in Australia. We're very proud to call him our own. Welcome, Mr. Khalil.
مساء الخير. أحب أقول كداسة البابا إحنا أخذنا بركة كبيرة من الزيارة دي. إحنا الآباط أستراليا وملبون انبسطنا جدا في زيارة البابا في ملبون ونتمنى إنها تتكرر. وأنا شخصيا أخذت أكبر بركة عشان الوقت الجميل أنا قضيت مع البابا في كامبرا. وكمان خلال الأسبوع العربي بتاعي تحسن لدرجة إن دلوقتي البابا فاهم أنا بقول إيه. طبعا في أول الأسبوع كان ما فيش حد فهمني خالص. وصلنا آخر الزيارة وكداستك إحنا هتوحشنا جدا. ونتمنى أن نشوف البابا في أستراليا قريب. Your Holiness, in English it's much easier for me. Your Holiness, Your Grace Bishop Suriel, Your Graces the Bishops, Your Excellency the Governor, Your Excellency Muhammad Khairat the Ambassador. It has been a really historic visit of His Holiness Pope Tawadros II, a very special week for Australia and a very special couple of days for Melbourne. As the first COP to be elected to the Federal Parliament, it was particularly special for me to have the privilege, the honour and the joy to welcome His Holiness to the Australian Parliament on Wednesday. As the Pope of Alexandria and the Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, His Holiness is the spiritual leader of a community of faith that is some 20 million strong around the world, and it is the oldest Christian church in the world. We welcome you here, Your Holiness, to Melbourne, a city that is cosmopolitan, multicultural and diverse, and I think rivals the ancient city of Alexandria. Tonight is the culmination of Your Holiness's historic visit to Australia, and I think it fitting that we celebrate 50 years of Copts migrating to this country, and we commemorate with joy and pride the opening today of the sublime Eporo Tower. The Coptic Church celebrates in success and in tribulation. It is a church built on martyrdom, but even though there is great sadness in these sacrifices, there is also a joy, an expression of joy in the strength of faith. The Coptic Church and the Copts have gone through difficult periods of persecution over 2,000 years. And some people in Australia, it's hard to fathom this strong faith that has kept the Coptic Church alive. But the Church expresses joy in the courage of her martyrs. who made the ultimate sacrifice for their faith. And this has been the great story of the Copts for 2,000 years. Through this unbending faith of the Copts, the Coptic people, the church has endured and flourished for 2,000 years. His Holiness is known as the Pope of Hope. His words, I heard him speak to our political leaders, the national political leaders in Canberra this week, were inspiring and beautiful in their simplicity. Love in action. And I think we all are as politicians, I'm sure, Kevin Andrews and Bill Shorten, who's with us here tonight, we're in politics ultimately to do good works, to do public service, and we hope to manifest love in political action. But I want to say too that His Holiness is not just a symbol of this love in action. He's a practical manifestation, and a practical manifestation of this love in action as a symbol and a practical implementer of national unity in Egypt. We know that Egypt is going through a very difficult period. We've seen the scourge of terrorism where so many young soldiers, so many young police, so many Coptic worshippers in churches have been slaughtered by these terrorists. Muslim and Christian, all Egyptian, have suffered. And the Pope, His Holiness, is a symbol for national unity for the country as he brings us all together. In my work, I'm humbled to be given the opportunity to play a constructive role to advocate for the rights of Copts in Australia and in Egypt, and to be a voice for all Coptic Australians and Egyptian Australians. And that is why it's so great to have Labor leader Bill Shorten here, the leader of the opposition, because he and Shadow Minister for Immigration Shane Newman and many of us worked very hard to ensure that Coptic Christian refugees were able to stay in Australia under Australian protection. And he may be embarrassed if I say this, but when I called Bill for his support, he didn't hesitate. He immediately took action, and through his leadership and understanding of the plight of the Copts in Egypt and what they were going through, it was instrumental in ensuring that those Coptic families had an opportunity for safety in this country. This year we celebrate 50 years since the migration of Copts to Australia in 1967, and I'm very proud to be part of that tradition, that legacy. My parents, Faye and Georgette Khalil, who are here tonight, they came to this country 48 years ago. And like those who continue to come today, they came for a better life. And actually my parents' wedding was the first Coptic wedding in the first Coptic church at Adra St. Mary's in Kensington. I was baptised in Kensington and St. Mary's, and I married Lydia in St. Mary's as well. So what does it mean to be a Copt in Australia? I'm sure all of us here have had that conversation with work colleagues or friends who say, you know, what is a Copt? You say you're Coptic Orthodox. I say, are you Greek Orthodox? No, we came before the Greeks. We're much older. You know, some of us have been a shamas and got up very early on a Sunday morning. I was not a very good shamas. I did it for a bit. And some of us really understand the connection that we have as Copts to a community of faith that is ancient, as I've mentioned. Thousands of Copts have come to this country. They've come from all corners of the world, and they've really contributed to a vibrant Australian Coptic community. Their sacrifice, their dedication, as they migrated to this distant land, so far away from Egypt, they've carried through across those vast oceans their ancient faith with them. And because of this long journey, the contribution of Coptic migrants to this country is even more exceptional for its depth and its success. Now, we know the Copts are descendants of the ancient Egyptians, a people who built monuments of grandeur that awed and inspired the world for millennia. And His Grace Bishop Cyril has brought a little bit of that to Australia in Melbourne. Today we celebrated the opening of the Apura Tower, a truly magnificent accomplishment, and it is thanks to the leadership, the vision and the dedication of His Grace Bishop Cyril that this has been realised. The Coptic community of Melbourne has realised a dream, and like their ancestors before them, have built a remarkable monument that will be a centre of culture, learning, faith, peace and hope, consecrated by the Pope of Hope. I offer my sincere congratulations to His Grace Bishop Suriel for his vision and dedication, and to all of those involved in the planning, designing, building and opening of the Aporo Tower. And I saw His Grace, some pictures of him in a hard hat and a high-vis green vest on the building site. Many of us politicians are very jealous of that uniform. We love wearing it for the pictures, but His Holiness looked great in them. I want to say finally that this tower, the Aporo Tower, will be a tower that lights the hearts and enriches the minds of thousands in our city of Melbourne. It is a special combination of modernism and tradition, and I look forward to the Copts taking great pride in it for generations to come. And we should not forget that it is owing to the commitment, faith and sacrifice of the Coptic community here in Australia, built on the humility of those who have migrated, that we're able today to stand within such an extraordinarily beautiful church, within a monumental tower, a beacon of light for the future and an enduring testament to how far we have come as a community. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the Leader of the Opposition and the alternative Prime Minister of Australia, Bill Shorten. Now, Bill's taken something like 150 flights over the past month. He's been to all parts of this country. He's everywhere and he rarely sees his family. And it is a sign of his commitment to the Coptic community that he's been able to join us here tonight, and I thank him for that. Please welcome, I hope, the future Prime Minister of Australia, Bill Shorten.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, and I pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. I acknowledge all of the distinguished guests. In particular, His Holiness, Pope Tawadros II, the 118th Patriarch of the Coptic Orthodox Church. And to His Holiness I say, Merhaban bikum. Sorry. I'm pleased to tell him that Australia, our home, is an ancient and sacred home of peoples who can map their dreaming back 65,000 years. But I'm also pleased to inform him that we have become a new home for people who can trace their faith back to Christ and their language and culture back to ancient Egypt. Today, you opened a monument to your culture and your community in Australia, the new Aporo Tower here in Melbourne, the Alexandria of Australia. And amongst all who've worked on that marvellous project, I would like to specifically congratulate His Grace, Bishop Suriel, for making this vision possible. Tonight, I want to address my brief remarks to those who belong to the Coptic community in Melbourne and Sydney and elsewhere. I'm here tonight because I want to help celebrate your success. The success which Coptic Christian immigrants have made in every field and endeavour in Australia, from medicine and the arts, to pharmacy and engineering, to business and community service and education. Australia may have given our Coptic community an opportunity, but no one has gifted the Coptic community in Australia its success except for yourself. You made it happen, you've done it yourself, and Australia is better because of your presence in this country. And in a troubled world, I'm sure that when you land back at Tullamarine, for example, everyone is happy to be here. But I have to say about the Coptic community in Australia, you have worked hard. You stayed late at work and you start early at work. You raise your children with respect for your families, your community and your heritage. You have loved your neighbour and you are your brother's keeper. And in doing so, you have enlarged and enriched our nation, a sentiment I'm sure that Mr. Kevin Andrews from the government supports, a sentiment I know that Her Excellency the Governor of Victoria supports. But sometimes in your busy lives, it mightn't be possible to just momentarily reflect on what you have accomplished. Every migrant who leaves their homeland makes an international leap of faith. The idea that you might grow old in a country different to the country where you grew up in as a child. The strength of conviction to leave the friends that you grew up with in the villages and towns and to start a new life on the other side of the world. It is not for the faint-hearted. So every Coptic Christian who makes Australia part of their story, you bring with us some of your lion-like courage to our country. Your Holiness, you said to me the other day that the connection with ancient Egypt runs deep in the veins of Coptic members of their community. The River Nile is the father, the earth surrounding it, the mother. To depart from that bond, to leave behind those familiar places and landmarks of childhood, to start a new life under a different set of stars. That is breathtakingly brave. You might take it in your stride now, and your sons and daughters and grandchildren might take it for granted. But it is a very brave deed. But of course, Copts know courage. For 21 centuries, Copts have kept their faith in the shadow of violence, in the shadow of persecution, because of who you are and what you believe. And I acknowledge the most welcome presence of His Excellency the Ambassador of Egypt and the Minister for Immigration from Egypt. And I acknowledge the strength of President Sisi and the important role he plays in maintaining peace and stability for the Coptic community in Egypt. But as you might explain to our visitors when you've had the chance, the evil of Daesh mightn't be always front page news in Australia. Sometimes that sort of violence seems very remote from the day-to-day lives of us lucky Australians. It seems, if you like, cut off from our part of the world. But I know that your families and your faith are on the front line of this danger all too often. I am sure I speak for many Australians, all Australians indeed, that we were horrified by the brutal and cowardly executions of Coptic Christians, people on their way to the St. Samuel Monastery. The bombings we've read about, killing people at prayer, the most peaceful of actions, at the church at Tanta and Alexandria. That cowardly suicide bomber who murdered 29 worshippers at St. Mark's in Cairo. I want you to know and to be able to tell your families in Egypt that this evil, this hatred, this violence, whilst it is a long way from Australia, that we in Australia deplore it as much as your families do in Egypt. I am very fortunate to have as my tutor in this matter Mr. Peter Khalil and his remarkable wife Lydia. All men marry up, don't they? And my immigration spokesperson, Shane Newman, and so many of my colleagues, and conscientious people in the government like Mr. Andrews. We are determined that for Coptic Christian refugees, Australia will always be a safe haven in times of peril. Now, Peter has told me to say that I barrack for Zamalak. Ana Zamalak Kawi. I'll stick to running the country, not Arabic. But please rest assured, despite my excruciating mauling of a language 20 centuries old, that there is political will in this country to view the challenges of Daesh and ISIS not just as problems in the Middle East or Egypt, but when we send the highly professional and trained men and women of the Australian Defence Forces, we are proud as a nation that we're doing our bit, however modest, to defeat the scourge of extremism overseas. And we understand that the international community as a whole has an obligation to build the foundations of peace, and especially through education, helping young men and women in North Africa and Egypt and the Middle East. And I know this is something, in conclusion, which Your Holiness is so passionate about. It is a link which joins Australians and Copts and Egyptians, which joins us all as citizens of the world. The power of education. It is what impels every generation of Coptic Christians to make sure they pass on a better deal to their kids than the one they inherited from their parents. And as a Christian in politics in Australia, I am also committed to the right of parents to choose a faith-based education in Australia. Your Holiness, we are pleased for you to bring all of your history and faith to this country. And I am also pleased personally because your visit is a recognition of the marvellous contribution of Coptic Christian Australians to life in Australia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shorten, for those very inspiring words. Peter, I have a word or two for you, actually. I've only married up to my beautiful Egyptian wife for the last 3 years, so I'm certainly no expert on the matter, but isn't it always a little bit embarrassing when your boss's Arabic is better than yours? We would now like to move on to the next part of the evening, a very special surprise for you all. We'd love to welcome Inez Ramsey and Victor Risk for the next segment.
Your Holiness, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing evening. A historical day indeed. I'm Inez Ramsey.
And I'm Victor Risk. We represent the first generation of immigration. Both of us arrived in Melbourne over 45 years ago. We have witnessed the community grow and develop from just a few families to this flourishing diocese it is today. The flowering of the Coptic Orthodox Church of this continent is indeed a remarkable story.
We've been extremely fortunate to be part of this developing rich heritage in this beautiful land we call home. We're very proud of our story. We're very proud of our humble beginnings and how far we have come. We look forward to a bright future with great hope under the visionary leadership of our beloved shepherd and father, His Grace Bishop Suriel. Indeed, he is a pioneer in his own right.
It is with great pride that we introduce a shadow play titled The First 50 Years. The play depicts the story of our earliest migrants who arrived by ship in 1967. The story illustrates the journey of our early settlers to Australia, ladies and gentlemen, the first 50 years.
As I journey on to another land, a prayer in my heart, a cross in my hand, I will say goodbye to the ones I love. What is old has passed and the new has come. For I come with empty hands, but my heart is filled with hope. I will praise the King of Peace. Alleluia. For this land is dark and void, and I long for heaven's light. My heart will be filled with glory. Now the Lord has given me, and his house will be built. His light has filled this land and my heart. His compassion never fails, and his mercy shall avail. My Father is my portion, I will wait for him. Alleluia. Praise and exalt him forever. Amen. As time passes by and my family starts, I will plant his seed deep inside their hearts, so that they know him and they learn his word. They return his love and grow in the church. As the shepherd leads his flock, he is made strong by the hands of our Father up in heaven. Alleluia. Now this land is filled with light, and my heart is satisfied. Let me praise him with a cymbal. Alleluia. Now we praise him as a choir, and for his words we aspire. His light has filled this land and our hearts. Now we gather in his name. As a family we pray that his blessings dwell within us now and always. Alleluia. Praise and exalt him forever. Amen. Alleluia. Praise and exalt him forever. Amen.
Thank you so much to Ines and Victor, and What a beautiful performance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we ask you to extend the warmest welcome to the Ambassador Mohammed Khairat, Ambassador of the Arab Republic of Egypt.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a great honor and pleasure to stand here before you with the presence of His Holiness Pope Tawadros II, Pope of the Coptic Orthodox Church in Egypt. I will leave this for a while and I will speak as an Egyptian. I'm not going to speak as the ambassador. Your Holiness, in Egypt, we used to call you the Pope of Love, the Pope of Hope, and the Pope of Tolerance. We all Egyptians, people, government, and leaders, appreciate your role in Egypt, keeping the Egyptian unity. I'm always saying that the Coptic Church in Egypt is another river Nile. It's a river of love and tolerance. It is the thread that bonding the soul and heart of Egypt. Your Holiness, thank you so much for all the efforts you are doing, and thank you for your support for Egypt, in Egypt and overseas. Let me also, welcome Her Excellency, the Governor of Victoria, Linda de Souza. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. The Honorable Kevin Andrew, representing the Premier, and the Honorable Bill Shorten, Leader of the Opposition. And I would like to start with some part of the speech of the Honorable Bill Shorten. For the past 4 years, Egypt has been suffering from the heinous attacks of terrorism, attacks that targeted civilians, innocent people, innocent Copts going to pray, innocent Copts inside their churches, and also we lost 2,500 Egyptian army people in this battle. So, the battle of terrorism needs our unity, and as Her Excellency Minister Nabila Makram mentioned before, that we have to be united against all forces of dark, of this strange phenomena to the Egyptian society. Bishops who are here have lived in Egypt, and if we go back to Egypt during the 50s and 60s, we had a different Egypt. Now, unfortunately, terrorism became a global phenomena, a phenomena that threatening not only Egypt, but everywhere. We have seen attacks in London, in Barcelona, in Paris, in Brussels, everywhere. So I'm here calling the Australian government to stand with the Egyptian government together against terrorism. Terrorism that's targeting all of us in Egypt. His Holiness' visit to Australia and his attendance, the opening ceremony, sends a very clear message. The Coptic community abroad, and especially in Australia, is not forgotten. You're all very much in the hearts and minds of the Coptic Orthodox Church and also of all the Egyptian people. Regardless if you are, have the Egyptian nationality or not, like our dear friend Peter Khalil. Over the past weeks, I've seen His Holiness represent you, the community, and Egypt on a level that I find very admirable and inspiring. His Holiness has been a great champion of peace, love, and unity. His Holiness has sent a very clear message that this peace, love, and unity what defines the Coptic community and Egypt. I have spoken to people from many different faces and backgrounds about His Holiness' visit to Australia. So far, they have all had the same feedback. His Holiness is a great source of inspiration, who very clearly sees how unity, despite any differences we may have, can be an answer to many of our problems. Over the past few years, living in Australia, I've seen how the Coptic community in Australia is a reflect of the values that His Holiness strongly supports and spreads. I have seen how active the Coptic community in Australia and how passionate they are about Egypt, despite being thousands of miles away. I would personally like to thank you all for your work in the community. And I see that the visit of His Holiness is a recognition of all your efforts and your role. Your Holiness, thank you for visiting us in Australia. This has been a visit many of us will never forget. Thank you all and hope you have a good night.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure you've all noticed, the mains are being served, so we ask you please to eat in silence as we continue with some more speeches. It is now my pleasure to call on our next speaker, who is the Most Reverend Archbishop Philip Fryer, the Anglican Primate of Australia.
Your Holiness, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, respected clergy, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honour to be part of such an important occasion as tonight, to see that in the span of only a few generations, the Coptic community has made such a strong contribution. And obviously this goes down to the formation in faith that we celebrate tonight, that people coming in the diaspora seek to make a contribution to the country in which you live, and I'm very grateful for that. And grateful for the place that the Coptic Church is playing in the religious life of Australia. I think all Christians look with great admiration and affection at the Coptic Church for the many martyrs it has given to witness to the faith. And we know tragically in the present day this continues, but we are strengthened by the strength of the commitment of the Coptic Church to witness to our Lord Jesus Christ in good and in demanding circumstances. Your Holiness, I have a small gift I'd like to give to you tonight. This is a painting by one of our Anglican Aboriginal clergy depicting the Holy Family. And I hope that you might be gracious enough to find a place where you can see this, because we know that Egypt was the country that received the Holy Family in the time of persecution. The Coptic Church is a nation of people who have found a lasting and sincere place of discipleship for the Lord Jesus Christ in their hearts. And we ask that you would continue to encourage us as we seek to be a community reconciled in justice with the original peoples of this land. And as you speak for minority rights of the indigenous people of Egypt, we continue to seek that justice here for the indigenous people of our own nation. So we're very honoured that your presence, your Christian brothers and sisters have great admiration for your contribution, and we pray God's continued blessing on yourself, on Bishop Cyril and others who lead the Coptic Church here, that you would be strengthened in every way for your ministry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Archbishop. We would now like to welcome Sister Elizabeth Delaney, Secretary of the Victorian Council of Churches, to say a few words.
Good evening, Pope Tawadros, Bishop Cyril, Bishop Daniel, civic and religious leaders. It is a privilege to be here with you tonight. Your Holiness, welcome once again to Australia. I bring greetings from the 19 member churches of the National Council of Churches in Australia. Many of the leaders of our member churches are present here. Archbishop Freer has just spoken. Others have been present on other occasions during your visit. On behalf of our churches who gather together, I want to thank you for your ecumenical endeavours, your commitment to ecumenism. Your meetings with church leaders may have taken place in distant countries, in Rome, London, Geneva, in Cairo, but the message of your actions speak to us here. We are grateful for all that you have done to promote our ecumenical relations. Thank you. But we are grateful too for the wonderful commitment to ecumenism shown by Bishop Cyril, Bishop Daniel, and by members of the Coptic Church. This year has been a significant year for all people present and for the Coptic Church in Australia. 50 years since the first Copts have arrived is very significant. The events of today, the opening of the Eporo Tower, has been a most wonderful occasion. It is a significant year for you too, Your Holiness, as it marks the 5th year of your pontificate and the 20th year of your ordination. 20 years of service to the Coptic Church. Again, thank you. I want to mention your the patron of your see, St. Mark. St. Mark's Gospel intrigues me every time I read it. I love the way Mark speaks of Jesus as being in a hurry, eager to do the will of his Father, eager to spread the reign of God. Your church in Australia, and especially here in Melbourne, must surely have the spirit of St. Mark as they eagerly seek to do their part in bringing about the reign of God. The Eporo Tower, St. Athanasius College, they are signs of their commitment to following Christ and spreading his message. The beautiful chapel in which we sat today, and undoubtedly the whole building, are signs of vision, of leadership, commitment, cooperation, careful planning, artistry, skill, signs of the many gifts of your people, gifts that have been used to give glory to God. As you see these signs and you are surrounded by so many people who love you and honour you and live faithfully, May they be signs to you of hope. May they strengthen your hope as you continue in your ministry as a Pope of hope. Thank you.
Let's try this there. Thank you for those kind words, Sister Delaney. We'll now leave you in peace to enjoy your meal and talk amongst yourselves, and also introduce at the same time our second musical interlude performed by Mina Samali and Wessam Malik. Please enjoy your meals.
left.
Gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the official proceedings are about to resume in about 5 minutes' time. Can we ask you to please make your way back to your seats? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, official proceedings are about to resume. Can we please ask you all to make your way back to your seats? Thank you.
they're listening anyway. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please ask you to take a seat? Official proceedings are about to resume. Today is an... Today is an historic day for the Diocese of Melbourne, with His Holiness here among us and having officially unveiled Apuro Tower. Together with the tower, we stand tall in acknowledging the vision of our beloved Bishop Suriel on this monumental achievement for our church. And now, reflecting on the journey of our church community, please welcome Mary Sorsok and Mr. Basilios Marcos.
Good evening, Your Holiness and distinguished guests. I am Mary Sorsok. I am an Australian-born young Copt, but some say that my Arabic is very good. Ana shatra wa nasha. I grew up under the leadership of the late Very Father Mina Riscala, a much-loved spiritual father to many in our diocese.
And I am Basilios Marcos. I represent the original pioneers of the Coptic Church in Melbourne. And I am very young at heart. Mary is the daughter of Father Luke, who is the representative of new generation of ordained clergy and the leadership of His Grace, Bishop Suriel.
Our future is very promising indeed. Today, the 10th of September, 2017, marks the day the Apuro Tower officially opened. It is more than just a building, but a hope for my generation and the generation to come.
When I look back to our first group of families here in Melbourne, none of us could have imagined that in just 5 decades we would witness this day with the blessing, vision, and leadership of His Grace, Bishop Suriel. From the depths of my heart, I congratulate you, Bishop Suriel, and all of your community, and thank you all for your hard work and effort for the prosperity of our community and future generation.
Let us now witness this journey that has brought us Apuro Tower, a sanctuary of peace in the heart of Melbourne, and the first such tower outside of Egypt.
Well, I've always wanted to have a presence in the Melbourne CBD since I arrived to Melbourne in 1999, but never thought of how that may come together. But an opportunity arose in 2010 where we were able to purchase these 3 buildings here on La Trobe Street. And then we started to think what we could do with them. We used one of the buildings for a church for a short period of time until we began to develop this vision of having the tower and having 4.5 levels at the bottom of the tower for diocese use and for our theological college.
So we just began through God's grace. We approached different key parties, and we thought we'll look at it and consider the situation in a way that can facilitate the success of the project. And surprisingly, things worked out quite well, not just purely as a 43, 44-story building, but rather the vision of the church, and the church was the jewel of the whole project.
There
word Eporo is a Coptic word. It comes from an ancient Coptic hymn speaking about the King of Peace, who is our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So we want this site to be a place of tranquility, of hope for people, place for meditation and contemplation, that people can come and sit in the chapel or in the church and to spend some quiet time in the hustle and bustle of a very busy city.
His Grace has always been a tremendous mentor, and also he's the inspiration behind the project. And it was his vision that we've followed to get to this point. And was always very excited, and he loves ideas like this, and he's fully committed, very, very committed to the project, and very committed to the objective, which is obviously to have a central church in Melbourne CBD.
Melbourne and Australia in general is a very multicultural society with hundreds of different cultures, and so we have a very rich culture as Copts dating back 2,000 years, and we want to share this with the wider Australian public, to share our history, our theology, our Christian faith, our Coptic art, our music. So I think we have something unique here in the Melbourne CBD and a great opportunity to be able to share.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has now come to hear from our father, our shepherd and our leader, the man behind the vision. Arriving with his parents in Australia as a child in 1967, he grew up in Sydney. He worked as a secondary school teacher until his entry into monastic life, where he spent years in St. Bishoy Monastery in Egypt before his ordination as a bishop. He served with distinction in the United States before his enthronement at the first ever bishop of the Diocese of Melbourne and its affiliated regions. Since then, His Grace has been a true leader of spiritual growth, ordaining countless new priests and deacons, establishing a theological college, all while completing his doctorate studies in Christian education. He has made enormous impact on the Coptic Orthodox mission internationally, establishing the first Coptic Orthodox church in Fiji. And now, tonight, part of the celebration of the crowning achievement of the Eporo Tower, a Coptic centre in the heart of Melbourne. We are truly inspired by all that you do to serve your people. Ladies and gentlemen, with the warmest applause, I ask you to greet our beloved Father and Bishop, His Grace, Bishop Suriel.
Your Holiness, Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria and Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, Your Excellency, the Honorable Linda Dessau, Governor of Victoria, and Mr. Anthony Howard, QC, Your Graces, Honorable Members of Parliament, Reverend Fathers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great joy that we are here together tonight in this beautiful venue in honor of His Holiness, who has faithfully served as a leader to our 20 million Copts worldwide since being enthroned in 2012. Your Holiness, as a father and a leader, you have served us as an exemplary shepherd and teacher who has preached a message of hope and peace to your people. And we thank you for having the courage to speak out to advocate religious freedom, respectful interfaith dialogue, and full expression of our faith. We are so grateful for your tireless service, diplomacy, and comforting words of life that you impart to your people. Your Holiness, tonight we are gathering together as a Coptic Christian community and a broader Australian collective. Many of us shared in the joy of the opening of Eporo Tower with Your Holiness earlier today. and we're privileged to have Your Holiness bless and open our new spiritual and cultural hub in the Melbourne CBD. This evening, we also take time to reflect on how we as a Coptic community have grown, matured, and flourished as the Copts of Melbourne and its affiliated regions. In January 2019, the Diocese of Melbourne, and in fact all the Copts in Australia, will celebrate 50 years since the first Divine Liturgy was celebrated on Australian soil, and this was the first priest that came out, Father Mina Na'matallah of blessed memory, who came by ship, celebrated the first Eucharist in Melbourne, and then continued on his journey to Sydney, where he began his ministry there and would come down to Melbourne each month for a liturgy for the small community that had begun settling in Victoria. As our Jubilee year draws close, it is important to pay homage to those who first brought the flame of Coptic Christianity to Australia from Egypt. Coptic migrants brought with them a Christian heritage that was passed on to them from St. Mark the Evangelist, who is our apostolic founder. The first Copts who arrived on Australian shores in the 1960s came with new hopes, dreams, and aspirations, together with their Bibles, prayers, and hymn books. They came with qualifications in fields such as medicine, engineering, finance, teaching, and artistic pursuits, and collectively made a positive professional and social contribution to local communities and Australian society at large. Furthermore, the Copts realized the importance of integration, and this is reflected in the fact that they did not settle in just one suburb in Melbourne, but were spread across a number of metropolitan suburbs, as is now reflected in our diverse church locations. With the passage of time, we have seen Australian Egyptian members take a more proactive leadership role within society, and we are proud to have Mr. Peter Khalil as our first federal parliamentarian as the member for Wills in Melbourne's northern suburbs. We also acknowledge the role of Mr. Sam Aziz, who is serving as mayor of the city of Casey, that is positioned in a growth corridor of the southern eastern suburbs of Melbourne. Since my enthronement in 1999, it has been my honor and my delight to have served with a dedicated team of priests, lay people, and of course devoted youth, all of whom continue to keep the light, the heart, and the flame of faith alive. Over the past 18 years, our congregation has grown by way of migration and through our young and growing families. This growth trajectory has created the need for increased church infrastructure, educational resources, aged care, accommodation, and more priests to serve in our parishes. To serve this growing need, our diocese serves parishes in Victoria, Canberra, South Australia, West Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand, the South Pacific, and particularly in Fiji, where we have established an orphanage that has about 25 children that are under our care there, and a large Coptic center is currently being built in Nandi, and we hope that Your Holiness will come on your next visit to officially open our new Coptic center in Nandi in Fiji. We also have two blessed monasteries, one for monks and one for nuns, that Your Holiness blessed yesterday. a Coptic school which has 830 students aged from kindergarten to year 12, and a hostel to care for the elderly. But in order to serve the pastoral needs of the community, it is vital that those who serve are equipped spiritually as well as theologically and intellectually, and therefore priority was also given to establishing a Coptic theological college that would be central to our ministry. With the blessings of His Holiness Pope Shenouda III of blessed memory, a theological college named after the great champion of orthodoxy, Saint Athanasius, was founded in the Diocese of Melbourne in the year 2000. And then in 2011, Saint Athanasius College became the first accredited Coptic Orthodox theological college in the world and became an affiliated college or a collegiate college of the University of Divinity. At this point, I wish to express our sincere gratitude and respect to the Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor of the University of Divinity, who are with us here tonight, for their ongoing support of our college and for their guidance and strategic leadership in keeping theological education alive in Victoria and in Australia, and relevant in an increasingly secular Australian backdrop. And as the Chancellor mentioned at the opening of Eporo Tower, that we currently have an application in front of the university to allow us to teach Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Theology, Master of Arts Theology, Master of Divinity, Master of Arts Theology by research, and a PhD. If we are successful next week in this application, then, as I understand, we will be the first Orthodox college in the world to be offering a PhD of its own accord. Even St. Vladimir's Orthodox Seminary in New York, that has been around for 100 years, does not offer a PhD. This is a great achievement for our college in a period of 6 years. Also close to my heart has been the preservation and promotion of monastic life within the Coptic Church and Australian society. St. Anthony's Monastery for monks was established in 1989 and has faithfully served the needs of the men of the diocese who often spend times of retreat. In like manner, the Archangel Michael Monastery for nuns was founded in 2015 and has since also served the needs of women who seek an oasis for spiritual retreat and contemplation. Social justice matters are also important to our community and have been given due care and attention. Accordingly, a foundation called the Coptic Hope Charity was established to financially support our Coptic brothers and sisters in Egypt who are suffering hardship in any way, such as those who are victims of terrorism. Further to this, I have partnered with community leaders to advocate that all refugees are welcomed, supported, and integrated into our great Australian way of life. And finally, we are all very proud of the new church and theological college we have within the premises at Eporo Tower. The parish church of St. Verena and St. Bishoy will serve as a mission church that will reach out not only to the Coptic community, but to the diverse city community that comprises overseas students, young professionals, as well as the homeless, and all those who require pastoral care. It is our hope that Eporo Tower will be our gift to the Australian community at large by offering the richness of Coptic tradition, culture, faith, education, as well as the visual arts. I'm indeed truly humbled to see how this diocese has grown and flourished and has become a dynamic contributor to the moral fabric of our local communities and broader Australian society. And from the depths of my heart, I wish to express my sincere gratitude and love to each person and each member within the diocese who has contributed in making our church what it is today. You have each played an important role in helping to build the civilization of love, peace, and hope for today and tomorrow. I want to give special mention to all the Reverend Fathers of this diocese who labor diligently in the Lord's vineyard, serving with all love and fatherhood. And I would like to make special mention of Very Reverend Father Victor Rafael and Very Reverend Father Mina Ibrahim of blessed memory. Who have both been key leaders in the Coptic Orthodox Church in Melbourne and who have left a lasting legacy for future generations. Your Holiness, we are all deeply indebted for the love and care and support Your Holiness has provided for us, which has enabled our diocese to bear such good fruit, and we ask for Your Holiness's continued prayers. Once again, I thank Their Graces the bishops for being with us on this historic occasion, as well as all the Reverend Fathers, the distinguished guests, and indeed everyone here tonight. I want to share, Your Holiness, a little bit about my journey to Australia. I came here to this country when I was a young child of 4 years old with my parents, coming by ship in 1967, and they were coming to a new land, a strange country, a language they did not know, and it was a very difficult journey of about 1 month coming around the Horn of Africa as the Suez Canal was closed at that time. And when they arrived to Australia, Your Holiness, they had no one to meet them. They had no relatives here in 1967, and they were taken by train to Gala, which was a migrant center. And from what I hear, it was a very difficult place to stay in. And my father left my mom and my brother there, myself, and went up to Sydney to look for work. He was a watchmaker by trade. And he went to look for work as a watchmaker and could not find any work because they needed Australian experience, which obviously he did not have. He ended up working in the Australian Post Service for about 11 months until he was able to gather some money, and then opened his first shop in Dulwich Hill in Sydney. And he bought all of these brand new watches. He was so happy with them. And I'm sure my mom, who's here tonight to remember these stories, I'm so happy that she's here. And he bought all these new watches and put them on display, but he did not have any insurance and left them there on display overnight and did not have a safe. And about 2 weeks being there in the shop, unfortunately, someone threw a big stone into the window and stole all of the watches. This was his first experience in Australia within the first year. It was not a good start for him. But I remember telling me a story of a wonderful old woman, elderly woman, that came to him the next day reading this in the newspapers, offering some old watches that she had that he might sell and recoup a little bit of the money that he had lost. But the story didn't end there, Your Holiness, but within another 2 weeks, our house was broken into as well, and everything in the house was also stolen. I guess the reason I'm telling this story to Your Holiness is that the first Copts that came to this land really suffered a lot. to establish a church. There was no church in Australia at the time. My parents, I remember, were very worried about their children, how they're going to grow up in Australia without a church. But they had a vision, and they loved their church so much, and they wrote, a group of them, to Pope Carolus VI, Saint Pope Carolus VI, a letter pleading with him to send to them a priest. And indeed, Father Mina Na'matallah came out in 1969, began to serve the community. Shortly afterwards, a church was purchased, St. Mary's Church in Sydenham, and the ministry began, and it began to flourish. If we look back 50 years, I don't think any of the people that were here at the time could ever imagine that this is what the Coptic Orthodox Church would be like today in Sydney, in Melbourne, and in other parts of Australia. And this has been due to the dedication. This has been due to the great dedication and devotion and love of the Coptic people to their church, to the priesthood, to the bishops that used to come regularly. And you know, many other migrant communities that came to Australia lost the first couple of generations. But we are grateful to our mother church that sent out pastors and priests and bishops to serve the people regularly. And that's why we were able to preserve these early generation of Copts, many of them who are with us this evening. Your Holiness, we love you so much. We love Egypt, our homeland, and we also love this blessed nation of Australia that has provided so much success and fruits for our community here. We look forward to your many visits to us, that you may come and continue to bless your people who love you with all their heart. Thank you, Your Holiness.
Thank you so much, Your Grace, for your leadership, your vision, and your tireless work. I can say that we're all so proud of the Aporo Tower, and we're so excited by the plans that you have for the future of our community. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for being patient with our technical difficulties. So for the second time this evening, here is a video depicting the journey of the Aporo Tower.
Well, I've always wanted to have a presence in the Melbourne CBD since I arrived to Melbourne in 1999, but never thought of how that may come together. But an opportunity arose in 2010. We were able to purchase these 3 buildings here on La Trobe Street, and then we started to think what we could do with them. We used one of the buildings for a church for a short period of time until we began to develop this vision of having the tower and having 4.5 levels at the bottom of the tower for diocese use and for our theological college.
So we just began through God's grace. We approached different key parties, and we thought we'll look at it and consider the situation in a way that can facilitate the success of the project. And surprisingly, things worked out quite well, not just purely as a 43, 44-story building, but rather the vision of the church, and the church was the jewel of the whole project.
The word Aporo is a Coptic word. It comes from an ancient Coptic hymn speaking about the King of Peace, who is our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So we want this site to be a place of tranquility, of hope for people, a place for meditation and contemplation, that people can come and sit in the chapel or in the church and to spend some quiet time in the hustle and bustle of a very busy city.
His Grace has always been a tremendous mentor, and also he's the inspiration behind the project. And it was his vision that we've followed to get to this point. And I was always very excited, and he loves ideas like this, and he's fully committed, very, very committed to the project, and very committed to the objective, which is obviously to have a central church in the Melbourne CBD.
Melbourne and Australia in general is a very multicultural society with hundreds of different cultures, and so we have a very rich culture as Copts dating back 2,000 years, and we want to share this with the wider Australian public, to share our history, our theology, our Christian faith, our Coptic art, our music. So I think we have something unique here in the Melbourne CBD, and a great opportunity to be able to share this identity. I'm deeply indebted to His Holiness Pope Tawadros II for officially opening Eporo Tower. It's a great joy to have His Holiness with us and to bless our community. And to bless this building and to consecrate the church this morning.
Now we're back in the city, we can open up to the general public. For example, in the building itself, it has quite a local community from various backgrounds, mostly Asian, and we would like also to start some sort of Bible study for the Asian community in the city, which a lot of the churches are doing and finding it very, very successful. And so we'd like also to open up the church really every day, and we'd like people to come in for tea and coffee and open up the church and showing them tours around the iconography and the wonderful artistic work, but rather just people to come in and to attend and have a coffee and tea and get to know the Coptic Church.
Ashraf Faye is a very talented iconographer. He was the top student and disciple of a brilliant iconographer in the 20th century whose name was Isaac Fanous, and he learned from him.
Eporo, one of the most important projects of my career or artistic career. It's contains a real vision, starting from choosing the name of the church, because that's present Saint Verenas, which is a very old Coptic saint, and the vision of His Grace and Father Mark to present a tower in CBD. I was really lucky to be commissioned to do my artwork, which is a huge artwork.
I think the iconography and the stained glass windows is actually quite remarkable in Australian history. And so this should be a real signature and a real draw card, really grabs attention.
It contains a huge panel of mosaic, like 3 meter by 15 meter. Contains a huge 12 stained glass windows, about 2 meter by 5 meter. Around 97 icons, from small to really huge icons. A full church full of mural paintings. All this was a dream, to do something in a real vision, theological, historical, and artistic vision. My work there is present heaven into earth. When you step in the church, it's a window to eternity.
I think he's really developed his skills over many years. He's done a brilliant job. I'm deeply indebted to him and to all of the other iconographers that have been working with him to produce this work.
His Grace has always been a tremendous mentor, and also he's the inspiration behind the project. And it was his vision that we've followed to get to this point.
The reaction from the wider Australian community has been amazing. There's been a lot of interest from many churches that have come and spoken with us, wanting to see how we were able to complete this vision and thinking of doing similar projects, whether here in Australia or in other different parts of the world. A great interest from obviously the University of Divinity. We are a member college of the University of Divinity, and They've been very impressed with the work that we have done here and how our college has progressed over many years, and indeed many heads of churches as well.
I like the theological college being here. This is something that really inspiring for me. And that's, if you look at history as well, a theological college in the middle of the city and the middle of Melbourne, it has a dramatic impact on the course of culture and history. And so that to me is really inspiring, and also having a church here, a young church here, that will look at with a different perspective, which is to really reach out to the greater community and engage the community, and also having a bookshop and you know the full facilities here. It's been something tremendous, and I think people will enjoy it today and for the future generations.
I'm deeply indebted to Munir Abdulfam, who was the architect who designed these 4.5 levels for us. I think he's done a great work, and so he's been a great friend for many years. I'm very thankful for all of his work, and also to George Munir from Decent Home, who designed and implemented all of the beautiful Coptic woodwork within the building. Hobi, who is our adventure partners from Singapore, have been a wonderful team to work with us and collaborated very well. Sinclair Brook, who's been our project managers, ProBuild, the builders, many people, Buchan Group, the architects, many people have been working for many years with us to be able to achieve this finished product today.
Seeing the groups come together at the right point of time. God always sends the right people at the right time. And sometimes I would pray before meetings, which was quite interesting with a group of professionals, that they would pray before a meeting and discuss the objectives of the church. And they were very fervent and very enthusiastic about meeting the criteria and objectives of the church. That was quite remarkable for me. When the cops come here and see what they've done, it's really for the future generation, for the future children. You know, I take myself back a long time ago. I used to work across the road from here previously, before the priesthood. If I had a church across the road and a theological college across the road and a place to come study across the road, it's a real safe haven for our children. And that should be a tremendous asset for, not for this generation, but many future generations. I think in the course of time, they will reflect on this and say, wow, this has been a tremendous project.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, no words or sentiments carry enough weight to introduce our Father, the Pope and Patriarch, for whom we gather this evening. Your Holiness, you've devoted your life to your children, the children of the Coptic Church. You're a man for all generations and for all ages. The grace of God that emanates from your being brings comfort to our universal and apostolic church during the worst tribulations. You teach us humility and instill us with wisdom through your words. Whether you're addressing world parliaments or local youth, whether you're receiving an international award or a gift of love from a child, your guidance and leadership has enabled our church to flourish. We're privileged to have you among us as we unveiled our most ambitious achievement in Melbourne, Eporo Tower, a symbol of strength and hope on the eve of the Coptic New Year. In what will be your first celebration of the Coptic New Year outside of Egypt, we can truly say we're honoured to have you among us to lead us into the next 12 months. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we ask you to welcome with resounding acclaim, to deliver the keynote address on this blessed occasion, the Pope of Alexandria and the Patriarch of the See of St. Mark, His Holiness Pope Tawadros II.
Thank you. Thank you. Your Eminence, Your Excellencies, Your Graces, Your Reverend Father, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be with you tonight. It was a lovely day today. As the morning was the consecration of the Coptic Orthodox with the name of two Egyptian saints, Saint Verena and Saint Bishoy. At afternoon was the opening of the Aburu Tower, King of Peace Tower. At evening was this wonderful dinner with all of you. زغروطة مصرية. Thank you so much for this warm reception and for this wonderful hospitality. I am so happy. And tomorrow is the new Coptic year. We say in Egyptian language or Coptic language, we say Nofri Shai. Nofri Shai means happy feast. You can say with me, Nofri Shai. Nofri Shai. The Coptic community here in Australia started from about 50 years. And this starting was like a seed put in the Australian soil. Therefore, I would like to read with you some words from the first psalm. She shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever she does shall prosper. This small seed from 50 years are growing, and now, after this long history of 50 years, we found 3 bishops, tens of priests and monks and nuns, tens of churches in many cities and many towns, and also some schools, tens of students studying theology in the College of Theology, and also monasteries for monks and for nuns. This is considered as extension for the Egyptian civilization, which has very long, rich history. I would like to say some information about that history. One of the oldest name of Egypt is Kimi. Kimi is old word in the old Egyptian language, means black soil, the black soil around the Nile River. From this word, Kimi, the science of chemistry, which we use in our studies, coming from the land of Egypt, land of civilization. Egypt is blessed homeland. Egypt is very beautiful country. Egypt is a country for the future. After 30 of June 2013, after a new constitution in Egypt, new president, a new parliament, we start new beginning in the life of Egypt. We all, as Egyptians, are working for the new future, for the new Egypt. Therefore, supporting and helping Egypt in its economy, in its education, in its tourism is very important from our friends like Australia. أنا سعيد للغاية أن أنا أكون وياكم النهاردة. أفتخر بهذه الجالية المصرية القبطية الواسعة في أستراليا، بهذا النشاط وهذه المحبة التي تجمعنا جميعا. ما أشهى يا إخوتي أن نجتمع جميعا في هذه المحبة، وما أشهده وما شهدت في زيارات أستراليا سواء في سيدني أو في ملبورن أو في كامبرا، في هذه الثلاث مدن التي زرتها، وجدت نوع من التفاعل القوي بين كل المصريين الذين هاجروا منذ زمن بعيد، كما ذكر نيافة أنبا سوريال في بداية أو في نهاية الستينات، وبدأت الكنيسة كصغيرة وبدأت تمتد كتعبير عن الامتداد المصري. أنا أعتقد أن وجود الأقباط والمصريين هنا في أستراليا هو امتداد لهذه الحضارة المصرية القوية، وامتداد قوي. ونحن نؤمن أن الله ضابط الكل، فلا يمكن أن يتحرك شيء إلا بحسب إرادته. والله الذي أراد أن يهاجر عدد من المصريين ويأتوا إلى هنا إلى هذه البلاد، رغم أنها بلاد بعيدة عن مصر، ولكن الله له هدف وله غرض. فوجود الحضارات والمالتي كالتشرز هنا سبب من أسباب الغنى وسبب من أسباب التقدم. لذلك أنا أحس المصريين جميعا اللي هاجروا واللي بقى فيه السكند والثيرد جينيريشن والفورث جينيريشن إنهم يتفاعلوا أكثر في المجتمع مع الحفاظ على كل ما تعلموه وكل ما استلموه من هذه الحضارة الغنية، الحضارة المصرية. يسرني أيضا في هذه الليلة أن يكون معنا هذا الوفد المصري من السيدة الوزيرة نبيلة مكرم، وأيضا الأحباء أعضاء من مجلس النواب المصري يحضرون معنا في هذه الليلة، مما يزيد الارتباط القوي بين مصر وبين أستراليا. شكرا نيافة أنبا سوريال على محبتكم الكبيرة، وشكرا لفريق العمل الكبير اللي اشتغل النهاردة وكل الأيام، وشكرا على اللوحات الجميلة اللي احنا شايفينها موجودة هنا وموجودة قدامكم. هذه ليلة جميلة نعتز بها جميعا، تشترك فيها أستراليا مع مصر ومصر مع أستراليا، ونقول ليحفظ الله مصر وليحفظ الله أستراليا. أشكركم كثيرا.
Your Holiness, thank you, and may God confirm you on your throne many years and peaceful times. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick dessert will now be served. Thank you.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. Let's go now. Okay, guys, let's go with the now. Let's go. They made the announcement. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I please ask you to all take your seats as the wait staff are trying to serve dessert at the moment and are unable to do that with everyone standing around. And could I also please make a request for no one to approach the papacy table just at this moment yet for security reasons. Please resume your seats while we serve dessert. Ladies and gentlemen, could I please ask you all to return to your seats? Ladies and gentlemen, we'd kindly ask that you sit down, please, so we can continue with the evening. Please return to your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, could I please ask you all to return to your seats so we can commence and continue with the evening? Ladies and gentlemen, please kindly return to your seats so we may continue with the evening. Thank you.
facing the stage now on the right. No, just still there. That was like 10 minutes ago. I'll be told what very end. Yeah, was the second.
For the presenters on the other side. Can I grab two? It's okay. I'll grab two and bring them back. There's a new by me doing this. Two colours I know. Two colours I know.
Yes, Anthony, how are you?
We'll just take this place. It's impossible. She's Egyptian. I said it's impossible. Then when you said before, when you said my wife's Egyptian, I go, they look like a couple. It must be them. Yeah, there you go. Fantastic. You know, it was very good, but because you didn't speak Arabic throughout it at all.
Don, give me these mics.
You don't look at
Where's Andrew Leffler? Where Miriam is front table because I need to go for the saxophone.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I can imagine. and it was there. Oh really? Wow.
What was Elizabeth Delaney? Susie Elizabeth Delaney.
No, sister. She knows. Sister. I work for you guys at Front Street.
What do you want me to ask you? Yeah, look, I'll put 20%. Two people on the stage want to speak, is that right? Not that easy. Yeah, man.
You guys are allergic to one of us.
Can you tell me, so you know lights and camera to focus on the stage over there once the MCs have introduced them?
Can we get the lights and camera onto the stage? Those two at the stage on the speak. On the stage facing it, they're going to be on the right. I was standing at the bottom there. Facing the stage on the right.
She's not over there.
She's on my side.
Where is she?
No, but you guys are going to be guests.
Not on this stage, the other stage. You're at the other stage, yeah?
Nice to meet you. I've heard so many great things about you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes, we've met.
it's off. Yeah, turn it off because people talk about around. You're about to talk now. Turn it back on.
Yes, I'm on the mic.
Ladies and gentlemen, formal proceedings are resuming. Please make your way back to your seats. And we'd like to welcome you back and introduce you to Alice McHale and Luke Award.
Welcome to Melbourne, Australia, Your Holiness. My name is Alice McHale. I came here since 1971. I am a mother of 4 and a grandmother to 10, almost 11 children. I am a Sunday school servant at St. Mark's Church in Preston.
I am Luke Awad and I am 19 years old. Together we present all the grandchildren and grandparents of the diocese. My grandparents moved to Australia in 1967 and 1974.
This final piece for tonight's evening represents the future generation of our diocese, a cross-section of children of the diocese from Perth, Melbourne, New Zealand, and a surprise location.
We know how much you love your children, Your Holiness, and we all love you too. As the words say, "O give ear, shepherd, who leads the flock along." Through the hands of the Mighty One, together we stand strong. Through trials and tribulations, we pray with one voice to keep you in God's protection, our Father, Pope Tawadros.
Please give ear to our blessed children and grandchildren and be proud that our future generation will carry out Coptic Church in Australia for the next 50 years and beyond.
Through the hands of the
gentlemen, with this hope for the future, we bring the official part of our banquet to conclusion, and we thank you for your attendance. We pray for the peace and preservation of our Father, His Holiness, Pope Tawadros II, and we wish him every blessing and success for the remainder of his tour in Australia.
Thank you very much to all of you and to all of our distinguished guests. Thank you also to the Peninsula staff who've done a wonderful job of looking after us this evening. It has been both Miriam's and my honour to be your MCs this evening. Now, if I've learnt anything about Egyptian culture, you're all very excited to get up and get on your Facebook and Twitter and start tweeting photos about this evening. But I have to say to you, beraha, beraha. We're almost done. I would like, please, to ask you all to stand, but remain in your seats, remain where you are. Please stand, but stay where you are as we bid farewell to His Holiness. I would ask, please, that you do not approach for security reasons, and would like to hand over to Bishop Suriel for one last word before the departing of His Holiness.
Amin alleluia doxa Patrike eioke agio pneumati Tenoshe volengo emoje open choice Isos be Christos Esmoviklom tetinom bihi tentekmete Christos Evshon Ni arun emni mumin emni sitin emni karpos Sodiamono nainan Akechit cheris emoi systemet oi bentemer shisedek Dimet cheloyente Jakobino genayente matosala Bikat yatsot bente Daviti Sofia ente Solomon Biemne man baraklinon vieda viegeni apostolos Shoisa viare bon chenemeptao eratfim beniot etayot en al-sherefs Papa Tawadros Nem beniot en episkopos avasorien Nem beniot en episkopos niet kinimen Noden ted vevet agro hijeno ethronos en an misherom binem hasdeyo en Helinikon Tef veyo en nogajitiro sabesit no echalav gen kolim Tove bereso deliyegon evken novin evon khino helinik nabem neshtenai Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie flogison amines moerois timetan yakoni evon
امين بخريستوس بالنوتي
امين سجون
اللهم اجعلنا مستحقين ان نقول بشكر يا ابانا الذي في
Our
السماء.
Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. Amen.
محبة الله الآب ونعمة الابن وحيد شركة وموهبة وعطية الروح القدس تكون مع جماعكم. امضوا بسلام. سلام الرب يكون معكم.
I would just like to say a great thank you to Marianne Suriel and the team working with her. Thank you so much, Marianne, for this wonderful function, the amazing organization that you have done. We have all thoroughly enjoyed it. God bless you.
Temni